The rain was pounding against the windows like it wanted to break through. I remember staring at the droplets, tracing their paths down the glass, while Evelyn's voice cut through the silence. "You need to leave, Jacob. Just for tonight." Her tone was ice, not the sharp, angry kind, the kind that's so cold it numbs you, the kind that makes you realize, this isn't a request. I turned slowly, my wedding ring catching the dim light. She stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed. Her red dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary, looked like a wound against the white walls. "Why?" I asked, though some part of me already knew. The late-night calls, the business trips, the way she'd started locking her phone, she didn't flinch. "We need to finish something." "We." The word hung in the air, toxic. I opened my mouth, but she was already walking away, heels clicking like a countdown. That's when I heard it. A muffled laugh from downstairs. Male. Familiar. My legs moved before my brain did. Down the stairs, through the living room, into the kitchen. And there he was. Mark. My brother. Leaning against the counter with a whiskey in hand. Smirking like he'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. "Hey, Jake," he said, raising the glass. "We were just finishing the conversation." Rain blurred the neon sign of Haspor, Sunset Inn. As Jacob swerved into the parking lot, his fingers trembled typing the door code, their code, 0423, the date he'd married Evelyn. The irony tasted like blood. The room smelled of mildew and regret. He checked his phone. 17 missed calls. Her voicemails evolved from clipped, "Jacob, come home, we can talk," to a trembling whisper, "You don't know what you're messing with." But the real blow came at 11:47 p.m., a file synced to his cloud from the home security camera. Not a scene of passion. A business meeting. Evelyn and Mark at the dining table, papers spread between them. On top, a folder stamped with the logo of his dead father's company, Wright & Sons Construction. His father had died a year ago, leaving Mark drowning in debt and Jacob a hollow inheritance. "Why didn't you ever fight for us?" Mark had screamed at the funeral. Now Jacob understood. It wasn't grief. It was a confession. At dawn, he broke into Evelyn's office using her password. Evelyn Wright, 0423. Her computer glowed with contracts for historic building restorations. But Jacob, an architect, spotted the lie. Blueprints showed underground tunnels unrelated to design specs. A lock clicked behind him. Looking for this? A woman in a black leather coat tossed him a USB drive engraved. "Kara. They're funneling money through shell contracts," she said. "Your brother forged your father's signature a year before his heart attack. Think that's a coincidence?" Bile rose in his throat. His father, Mark, Evelyn, all these years. "Why help me?" Kara smiled like a knife. "Because they stole from me too. But I prefer revenge, with finesse." The USB held emails between Evelyn and offshore accounts. Jacob traced one to Vermilion Arts LLC, a $2 million painting sold to a museum for $500K. The difference landed in Mark's account, but the true horror was in a file named Phase 3. A contract between Wright & Sons and the city for seismic upgrades to Harper Bridge. His father's signature. Dated March 12, 2023. 8 months after his death. A rock shattered his car window. Attached, a note in Mark's handwriting. "Stop digging. She chose me anyway." Kara found him in his father's abandoned garage, where he'd hidden the documents. "They're going to collapse the bridge," she said, pointing at blueprints. "Collect $200 million in insurance. Blame design flaws." "Your flaws, Jacob." He remembered. Evelyn had asked him to glance at the bridge calculations a month ago. He'd refused, busy with another project. "Don't worry, darling," she'd said. "Mark will handle it." "How do you know all this?" he demanded. Kara opened a locket, a boy who looked like Mark, but the engraving read, "Lucas. My brother worked for them. Now he's dead. Want to join him?" Evelyn called at 3 a.m., sobbing. "I'm sorry. Mark's blackmailing me. Come to the docks, I'll explain. The line died. Jacob hesitated. It could be truth, or a noose. But when he arrived, slipping through the tunnels from the blueprints, he saw Evelyn handcuffed in a shipping container. Mark with a gun. Kara, kissing Mark deeply, her whisper carrying on the wind. Thanks for the script, darling. He took the bait. The spotlight burned Jacob's retinas, but it was Mark's laugh that seared his mind. Sharp, unhinged, the same laugh he'd heard when they were kids, and Mark set fire to their treehouse. You always trusted too easily, Jake. Evelyn's muffled screams echoed from the shipping container. Jacob lunged toward her, but Kara stepped into his path, her face a mask of cool indifference. The woman who'd handed him salvation hours ago now pressed a knife to his throat. You should have stayed gone, she hissed, but her eyes flickered. A split second of hesitation. He used it. Grabbing her wrist, he twisted until the knife clattered to the ground. A gunshot rang out. Concrete exploded near his foot. Mark's voice boomed. Run, brother! Like you did when Dad died! Jacob ran, not out of fear but rage, a primal metallic taste flooding his mouth. The docks blurred. Salt air mixed with the tang of blood as he vaulted over crates, Mark's bullets biting the wood behind him. 3 days earlier. The smell of his father's old study still lingered. Cedar and cigar smoke trapped in the cracks of the mahogany desk. Jacob hadn't set foot here since the funeral, but Kara's USB had led him to a locked drawer, its key hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of The Art of War, his father's favorite book, Mark's least. Inside, a ledger, not the corporate kind, a personal one. Columns of dates, initials, and amounts. JW, $50,000. ER, $75,000. MW, $200,000. Jacob's initials were there too. JW, $10,000. Dated 2 weeks before his wedding. He'd never taken the money, but someone had forged his signature. Present. The abandoned subway tunnel reeked of urine and rust. Jacob clutched the ledger to his chest, its pages crinkling like dry bones. Kara's words haunted him. Your father wasn't a saint. He built his empire on blackmail. A noise echoed ahead. Jacob froze. You're not the only one they betrayed, a voice rasped. A figure emerged, a gaunt man in a janitor's uniform, his face scarred. Name's Liam. I maintained their, historic tunnels. Saw things. Like the night your dad fell down the stairs. Jacob's throat tightened. It was an accident. Liam's laugh was bitter. The security footage showed Mark leaving an hour before the 911 call. Ask your wife why she deleted it. Flashback. The engagement party. Evelyn, radiant in emerald silk, had pulled him onto the balcony. Your brother hates me, she'd said, swirling her champagne. He's just protective, Jacob replied. Or jealous. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. He asked me to leave you last week. Said I'd regret choosing a man who lacks ambition. Jacob had brushed it off. Now, he wondered, had Mark's obsession started that night? Present. Liam led him to a hidden room beneath the tunnels, walls plastered with photos of Mark and Evelyn meeting shadowy figures. Mayors, judges, a senator. They're not just stealing, Liam said. They're building an empire, and you're the fall guy for Phase 3. Jacob's phone buzzed. An unknown number. Check the news. He tapped the screen. A headline screamed. Harper Bridge collapse. 12 dead. Architect sought for questioning. His face filled the screen. Wanted. The betrayal deepens. Kara found him at dawn, her knuckles bloody, her leather coat torn. Mark tried. To kill me, she panted. He found out I leaked the bridge plans. Jacob didn't move. Why should I believe you? She threw a burner phone at his feet. On it, a voicemail from Evelyn. Kara, tell Jacob I'm sorry. The baby. Mark. Can't know it's his. The world stopped. Baby? Kara's voice cracked. She's pregnant. That's why I switched sides, to protect the child. But Mark's gone mad. He'll bury everyone. Jacob stared at the phone. For the first time, he saw fear in Kara's eyes. Raw, uncalculated. What, now? He whispered. She gripped his arm. We finish what your father started. Cliffhanger ending. In his father's secret basement, Jacob found a safe. Inside, a deed to land in Mexico, a passport with his photo but a different name, and a letter. Jacob, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and Mark's beyond saving. The money in your ledger was your escape fund. Forgive me. Dad. But beneath the letter lay another photo, his father and Kara arm in arm, dated 3 months ago. The photo trembled in Jacob's hands. His father's arm around Kara, her smile softer than he'd ever seen. Familial. The date stamp, 3 months ago, 2 weeks before his father's death. You're his daughter, Jacob whispered. Kara leaned against the dusty basement wall, her mask of indifference finally slipping. Half-sister. He never acknowledged me. Just paid my mother to keep quiet. She pulled a pendant from under her shirt. A match to Jacob's, engraved with, "Forged in fire." He gave me this when I turned 18. Told me to stay hidden, until he's cleaned the family's sins. Her laugh was hollow. Turns out, cleaning meant faking his death. Jacob's mind reeled. Faked? The funeral. The will, the grave. Open the safe fully, she said. Beneath the passport was a burner phone. 1 voicemail. Jacob, it's Dad. If you're hearing this, the plan failed. Mark's not just greedy, he's infected. The money laundering, it's a front. They're smuggling something worse. Stop phase 3, and protect Kara. She's your... The message cut off. The unseen threat. Liam met them at the Yazia docks, his face ashen. They're not just collapsing bridges. They're using the tunnels to move containers. He slid a photo across the table. Mark and a man in a lab coat inspecting steel crates stamped with a biohazard symbol. Phase 3 isn't about insurance fraud, Kara muttered. It's a distribution network. Dad found out. That's why Mark killed him. Jacob's phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn's number. Meet me at Willow Creek Hospital. I'm in labor. Mark doesn't know. Flashback, the first lie. 5 years earlier, Jacob proposed under the Harper Bridge, unaware of the fissures already cracking its foundation. I'll rebuild this city with you, he'd vowed. Evelyn's kiss tasted like salt and secrets. We'll make history, she said. Later, he'd overheard her arguing with Mark. I'm marrying him, not you. Stick to the plan. He'd dismissed it as jealousy. Now, he wondered, had the bridge always been the target? Willow Creek Hospital. Evelyn's room was dark, monitors beeping. She gripped his hand, her face gaunt. The baby, it's yours, she gasped. Mark forced me to say it was his. He needs an heir to control Dad's shares. Sob escaped her. The containers, they're not just weapons, they're vaccines. Stolen, relabeled, sold to the highest bidder. Millions will die from fakes. Footsteps echoed outside. Kara hissed. We need to go, now. But Evelyn clung tighter. The ledger. Dad's codes can shut phase 3 down. But Mark added a kill switch. If he dies, everything detonates. The other door burst open. The kill switch. Mark stood silhouetted, a detonator in hand. Touching family reunion, but here's the twist. Kara works for me. Kara stepped toward him, smirking, until she spun and slammed a syringe into Mark's neck. Wrong. He crumpled, snarling. You traitorous! Dad's last order was to protect Jacob, she said, towing the detonator away. Even from you. Jacob lunged for the device, but Mark laughed, blood trickling from his lips. Too late. The kill switch isn't me, it's her. He pointed at Evelyn. The heart monitor flatlined. The hospital alarms merged into a deafening scream. Jacob cradled his newborn son, Daniel, named after his father, while Kara dragged him toward the emergency exit. "The warehouses," she yelled. "If Evelyn's biometrics go offline, the bombs detonate." Jacob's mind split. The weight of the child in his arms, the ghost of Evelyn's plea, the echo of his father's voice. Protect, destroy, survive. The choice. They raced through the underground tunnels, the same ones Mark had used to smuggle the vaccines. Jacob's phone lit up with a live feed. Warehouse 12A. Rows of steel crates, each marked with a red cross and a skull. "There's a override terminal," Kara said. "Dad's codes can disarm the bombs, but you need Evelyn's fingerprint, or yours. You're her backup." Jacob froze. Backup, the word from their wedding vows. If one falls, the other carries the legacy. He looked at Daniel, then at the screen. Millions of lives versus his son's future. "Do it," he said, pressing his thumb to the scanner. The truth unmasked. The terminal blinked. Biometric match, Jacob Wright. Authorization revoked. Mark's laughter crackled through the speakers. "Surprise! Dad's codes were a trap. You just activated the countdown." Kara cursed, pulling a drive from her pocket, the one she'd stolen from Mark earlier. "Override this," the screen flashed. 10-4, or 9:59. Daniel wailed as Jacob fumbled with the drive. "Why help me now?" Kara's voice broke. "Because Dad loved you, and I hated you for it. But the kid, he's innocent." On flashback, the last lesson. Jacob, age 14, stood with his father at Harper Bridge. "Someday, you'll inherit this," Daniel Wright said. "What if I fail?" His father smiled sadly. "Then burn it all down and rebuild from the ashes." The inferno. The drive worked. The countdown froze at Sonnerunshin. But Mark wasn't done. He emerged from the shadows, detonator in hand. "If I can't win, no one—" A single gunshot cut him off. Liam lowered his pistol, his face grim. "For my brother. And the ones you poisoned." Mark fell, his last words a whisper. "You never fought." Epilogue, 3 years later. The rebuilt Harper Bridge gleamed under the sun. Jacob stood at its edge, Daniel's tiny hand in his. Kara approached, her hair now streaked with gray. The vaccines were destroyed, the tunnels sealed. "And you?" he asked. She handed him a letter. Dad's final confession, admitting to the forgeries, the bribes, and a plea. "Let the world believe I was a monster. Protect Kara." "He loved you," Jacob said. "No," she replied. "But he wanted to." As she walked away, Daniel tugged Jacob's sleeve, pointing at the bridge's new plaque. "In memory of those who gave light to the darkness." Evelyn's name topped the list.